topic that I want to talk about today and hopefully educate you a little bit, and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion about it, is the ivory trade. I think it's a really important topic today because there are only approximately 400,000 elephants left, African elephants left in the world, and every day approximately 100 are killed, and approximately 35,000 are killed annually. So we're looking at maybe 10 years if this keeps up and we don't have any more elephants. So the first topic I want to talk about is the destruction of ivory. And this is what countries have started doing to basically stop poaching and having ivory on the market. So the pros of destruction of ivory is obviously less ivory. Kenya actually was the first person to start destroying ivory in 1989, and they destroyed 5 tons that year, and last year they actually destroyed 105 tons. And ivory is very thick. I mean, it's dentin, it's what your teeth are made of. So the problem with it is it actually takes, if you're burning it, which is what they did in Kenya, it takes a week for it to actually break down and turn to ash. They actually have to use jet fuel as the burning agent. And then with ivory there, the big problem with ivory is all these ivory in Kenya and these cities are in stockpiles, government stockpiles. So that leads to corruption. You know, government officials are taking bribes and giving out the ivory, or people are actually stealing from the ivory from the stockpiles. And the cons of that, though, is once you destroy the ivory, that means there's less ivory in circulation, which means the money, the cost, it goes up. There's actually an article that I have linked in here from The Guardian, and they reference the costs before destruction, after destruction, and it's actually gone up about 50 times after the destruction of that 105 tons of ivory. So poaching goes up because of that indirectly, and the demand for ivory is much higher. The other thing that is being thought about is banning trade. And I put this picture in the slide because this is Shetani. He's actually, there's a really good documentary out there by Leonardo DiCaprio who directs it, and it's about the ivory trade, what they're doing to stop it on all kinds of fronts. And then in the documentary they actually capture this gentleman, Shetani, who is responsible for killing 30,000 elephants. But they've been talking about a ban on trade, so basically making it illegal to import ivory, sell ivory, basically be associated with ivory at all. The pros of that is obviously no legal trade of ivory, so governments can't be involved. There's less chance for corruption since the government can't be involved. And then, since it is illegal, if you catch someone with ivory or selling ivory, taking it across borders, they can be punished. There's actually things you can do legally. The cons of it is it basically pushes for more illegal action. Since everything's illegal, everyone's got to do it under the radar. So it goes to the black market, poachers become much more sneaky, so it's harder to catch them poaching. That's black market, and then you get higher demand. Once again, less ivory going through that's legal, the higher the cost is. So what do you guys think about it?
So where do they collect ivory from to actually burn down
That was my question.
during the year?
So ivory that's in stockpiles, like let's say Kenya, for example, are basically ivory that they've confiscated mostly from poachers in the area because they have active task force that stop poachers.
Gotcha.
And it's all from the elephants.
Yes.
All of the ivory currently
Yeah.
available.
And every time that ivory is taken from an elephant, which is their tusks, they're killed. It's not like you just take the ivory off. The elephants are killed.
Are African elephants the only ones that have the ivory tusks? Or
No, Asian elephants have tusks, but they're smaller and the females usually don't have tusks. In African elephants, the males and the females have tusks. So it's a bigger profit to hunt an African elephant.
So what's the government doing to punish the poachers, the people who are still in the...
So there's all kinds of fees. Before a lot of the bans went through, it was just kind of a fee. If you got caught, it would be, a couple $100, maybe a couple days in jail. Now I think the fee is $500,000 and 6 years in jail. Yeah.
What's the ivory used for? Why are people wanting it?
So ivory, the interesting thing about ivory is it's not it's a man-made term because it's just their teeth. Ivory, the definition of ivory is basically any tooth that you can carve. So it's rare because it's such a big tooth, and you have to
Mhm.
carve it. You'll see it sold in carvings where they've carved the whole thing. They make in Turkey they make sword hilts, and it's a status. It's a
Mhm.
symbol.
Okay. So that's the main way it's used?
Yeah, it's basically if I have ivory, if I've bought ivory, I'm rich. It's a status symbol.
Okay.
When they burn it down, so are there any advantages to people? Are they able to use it for a benefiting way? Like, are there any emissions that go out if you burn ivory? Are they able to use it, to help communities and warming communities, or helping with cooking?
No, realistically, if I didn't include it in the slide, I wish I did, but if you look up the Kenya burnings, there's actually a really good picture of basically a pile of ash and a pile that they've stacked tusks to burn, and that pile of ash is from 1989, and the stack of tusks is from last year, so it doesn't go anywhere. It does put emissions in the air, not like a ton. I mean, you are burning jet fuel for a week, so it's, if you can imagine that, but relative to what is killing the elephants, it's a trade-off.
So there's no positive benefits to ivory. I mean, having the ivory, like there's nothing positive out of it.
Other than a status symbol?
No, yeah, there's nothing positive. They've actually experimented with making man-made ivory, so artificial ivory,
Mhm.
and then putting it in the market. But that actually, like with all these other things, putting the man-made ivory in the market made the actual ivory that much higher in demand because it was more rare. So it's just, people want it. That's just how it is.
So this government's trying to ban, and they're putting laws in effect to ban this poaching and stopping this and
Yeah,
to save
so-
elephants. But in the U.S., we can buy jewelry that's got ivory and things like that.
So the interesting thing about that is there was a big ban in 1989, which is why the poaching kind of declined for a little bit. It's picked up. And most nations banned it in general, the poaching, the selling, but last year was a big step because China is the #1 importer and buyer and seller of ivory, and last year they actually did a ban for a year, so it actually ends this year, and they're shutting down their carving shops that carve the ivory, so they're trying to see if that makes a change. If it does, they're going to keep the ban. If it doesn't, they're not. But one thing to think about, because people always think when you think about Africa and other third world countries with these problems, is like, yeah, China's the #1 importer seller, but we're #2 in the United States, and the only 2 states that actually have complete bans on the selling of ivory is New York and New Jersey. All of their 48 states you can buy and sell ivory. You can't, there's strict rules here and there. I don't really know the fine line, but most 48 other states you can trade ivory.
When the poachers get the ivory, what do they do with it? Do they sell it, or do they just get it and then burn it?
The who? The poachers?
Yeah.
The poachers, yeah.
People who get
They'll follow elephants for a while. They'll kill them. They'll take the tusks and the ivory, and they'll basically take it to wherever they trade it off to a buyer. And the horrible thing about it is it's hard to condemn poachers, but most poachers in Africa are just trying to make a living for their family, because when a poacher gets tusks, most of the time they give it. So if you think just like a big tusk, that could sell for $100,000. When that poacher gets that tusk and gives it to the middleman, that poacher makes about $7.
So I'm gonna ask a stupid question.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't they just put the elephant to sleep, dart it with a tranquilizer, and then cut its tusk off and let the elephant live?
Yeah, because the process of putting such a big animal down would be extremely hard, and if you're a poacher and you're just doing it for the money, you don't want to go through that process. You have to have the medicine, you have to know what's going on with the animal, you have to have the tools to cut the tusks out, and elephant tusks are actually part of their skull.
And can't you just cut it
Right.
just cut it off?
But elephants can't live without their tusks,
They
correct?
can.
They can?
There's actually, when I was at the American Association of Zookeepers conference,
Uh-huh,
Maryland Zoo actually has a couple African elephants,
uh-huh.
and 2 of their females don't have tusks. One had to have them removed because they had tooth issues,
Okay.
and one was born without them. They don't have to have their tusks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I know there was an initiative where they painted rhinos' horns pink so that poachers wouldn't do it. Have
Yeah.
they done anything similar with?
Yeah, actually, they actually didn't paint them. They actually put a dye into their body that made, when they
gotcha.
grew, they were pink. It was a pink dye, and the poachers didn't care. They took them and
They
they
still
just,
took
because the pink was just on the top layer,
They shaved
they
it.
just shaved the pink off and
Gotcha.
it was ivory underneath, so it didn't change much. Yeah.
So when poachers kill the elephants, do they get just the tusks, or do they use any other part of the
No, they only take the tusks. Lately, they've been taking the whole head as proof that it's real because of the artificial ivory. So you take the head to prove that it's a real tusk. But they don't. Yeah, when rangers go out and find all these elephants, it's just that they leave their bodies. They didn't take anything. They didn't take meat. They didn't take skin. Nothing else.
So how are we going to save the elephants?
Was that?
So if the elephant population is decreasing that quickly, did you learn anything about how they're trying to preserve them down there? How they're trying to keep poachers away?
So this is a huge topic, and this is where I'll end it because we are running out of time. But when it comes to saving the elephants, I mean, these two things: banning the trade, basically burning the ivory. They've tried having teams that are armed with weapons and they follow the elephants, but it's just elephants roam. I mean, they can travel 100 miles a day. So having a team with them is fine, but when they're traveling hundreds of miles a day, it's hard to track them, and the poachers it just takes 5 minutes for a poacher to kill an elephant. So, to be there and to stop a poacher, it's hard. So, I think the number one thing is awareness. If people know, and we get the actual bans on ivory out, since it's not 100% yet, I think that'll change. Last question?
Why do they burn this?
Well, she wants to know why the government burned stockpiles of ivory.
So they have the stockpiles, right?
Yeah.
They have all the ivory they confiscated. Basically, they just sit in a room, a big warehouse of ivory. So people can come in, they can steal the ivory and sell it. They can bribe government people and take the ivory. So it's easier to not have the ivory in circulation and to just destroy it.
But why did they take it in the first place if they didn't even want to use it?
This is the government that has gotten it, seized it back from poachers.
Yeah.
So the poachers went and
Yes.
the poachers went and killed the elephant and then cut the tusk off,
Mhm.
and then the government and the police went out and caught
Seized
them
it
and
back.
took it back. So what the government doesn't want to do is they don't want to do something with the
to get it back
ivory
in?
because they'll be just as bad as the poachers. So the ways it's destroyed. Same thing like when people confiscate drugs are destroyed.
Oh.
So it's the
Right.
same thing. It's
So
illegal
that's
things.
just them
That
destroying
makes
it.
sense now. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you for listening to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yay.